A long time ago, I came out with a video about Red Dead Redemption 2. It was one of the first videos I ever made, and for some reason, I stopped making Red Dead 2 content not too terribly long after, which hindsight was not the best idea in the world. But regardless, I wanted to remake that video because number one, I mean, it's one of the first videos I ever made, and it's not amazing. So if you're coming from that video, welcome. I'm sure you're aware of what this video will attempt to do, as this is a much better remake of said video, actual tips and tricks coming this time. And if you're just new to this, looking for some great tips to immerse yourself in the fantastic, probably one of the best open worlds of all time in Red Dead Redemption 2, welcome to the channel. I hope you enjoy this video. If you do, if you happen to stumble upon this, don't forget to leave it a nice, thick and juicy like, of course, as always. Also, don't forget to hit that big red sexy subscribe button right underneath the video. The sub button, it's not dead, not a Red Dead sub button. It could be, maybe. I'm rambling a little too much on that. I do want to thank my channel members. You guys help make these videos possible. If you want to join and get access to the exclusive perks that they get, then be sure to check out that blue join button. Anyway, let's get into these wonderful tips and tricks to immerse yourself in Red Dead 2, because like I said already, this is one of the greatest open worlds ever. It is not only fantastic to look at, but the experience of exploration and the rewards that you feel because of the way the game is designed are just some of the best that have ever been put into a game ever. And I feel like it is not doing yourself justice to not maximize the immersion that you can have in this game. Also, if you do hear any weird sounds, my cat is sitting in my lap as we speak, so she likes to rub her face against my desk. So if you hear purring or weird rubbing sounds, that is her. Anyway, the first tip that I have to immerse yourself in Red Dead Redemption 2 is going to be to turn off the navigational compass. Now you might be like, well, how am I supposed to know where I'm going, especially if it's your first playthrough? Well, that's the cool thing about this game. The developers thought about that. There are plenty of road signs that you can follow to get to certain towns that you're going to want to get to. There's also a decent amount of just natural landmarks or just landmarks in the world that you can honestly follow to let you know about where you are in the world. And especially as you go by them more and more to get to these certain locations, whether it's for missions or whether it's to get to these towns initially once you're coming from camp or something like that, you do pick up on them pretty quickly. And again, if you're not, there are road signs at a lot of the intersections that'll tell you where you're supposed to be going. And if worst comes to worst, you can always just check the main map. But the reason I say this is because even though this game doesn't have a big ugly marker on your screen the entire time, I did find myself a lot of the time just looking at the compass in the bottom and just following that red line, and I wasn't taking in the actual world around me. It wasn't until I'd turned it off completely that I was using my eyes to really scan the environment, to read those road signs, to pick up on those landmarks, to pick up on even little things like certain houses and where they are. You just really get a good grasp as to where you are in the world, to the point to where you almost don't even have to follow those road signs. It's almost like being in the town that you live in real life. You just start to be able to navigate naturally. And it's a really cool aspect of this game. Of course, I'm sure if you spend enough time with any open world game, you can get to that point, but this one is so well designed with being able to help you navigate that I think it's really important for immersion, especially, to do something like turn off the compass completely. The next tip that I have is going to be turn off HDR. Red Dead 2 does not have real HDR, and when it's on, it really doesn't even look that great. Personally, I think the game looks better without the HDR even on. I think the nighttime is much darker, especially when you're in the bayou area. It gives a much more of that kind of, not really horror feel until the night folk come around, but it definitely gives it a little bit more of a creepy night feel, as opposed to with the HDR on. It's kind of, I don't know, it looks a little too bright out still. It's not really kind of hiding anything. So when you stumble upon a gator, it's like you're almost still in the daytime. Obviously it's not, but you know what I'm trying to say. Regardless, this game was being developed, a bulk of it, before HDR was really much of a thing in the industry. So I don't really knock it too much for not having a great HDR. The game still looks absolutely phenomenal. But one of my tips for sure, if you want to immerse yourself, is to turn that off. Now, not all of you will have HDR compatible monitors, so you may not even have to worry about this. Just double check it. If you do, turn it off. If you don't worry about it. The next tip that I have, and this one's really an optional one, and that's to play in first person. Personally, I enjoy playing in the third person point of view. Number one, because when I played the original Red Dead game, it was all in third person. I view this as a third person franchise, but that doesn't mean that there can't be fun to be had in first person. I think especially in the combat part of it, I think you can have some really cool visuals in the first person point of view. I think the Euphoria engine, when it comes to the way that ragdolls happen, I think that looks and stands out a lot better in the first person point of view. There's, like I said, also certain environmental destruction like shooting fire bottles and whatnot that look a lot better in first person because it's just right there in front of you. You can also press down on the D-pad. I'm not sure what the keybind is on PC, but you can ADS down the sights of your rifle or your shotgun when in first person point of view, and that can add just another layer of immersion for you. Again, it's definitely more for immersion, but I do prefer to play in third person, and I still feel immersed that way, especially when riding on horseback. It can be a little janky riding in first person. It doesn't, I don't know, there's something with the way that the controls work where it doesn't feel quite natural. Like you can swivel your head, but the horse won't necessarily go where you're looking. And I would like that to have maybe been a setting for the game to where you could kind of guide it wherever you're looking around without having to worry about, oh, I'm looking this way, but then my horse is going this way, and it doesn't really feel all that natural. I would say for personal preference, if you really want to maximize immersion, then sure, go for it in first person, but I wouldn't say it's absolutely necessary to enjoy a really immersive experience. Now, the next tip that I have, and this is honestly one of the biggest tips, I would say. You might think it's not that great, but personally, I think it's actually really, really important. And that is to dress for the area that you are in. There are a lot of biomes in Red Dead Redemption 2, and I feel like dressing for them, not just for the heat or the cold, that of course, that part is pretty obvious, but I think for the cultural part of the environment that you're in, I think you have to fit in with that part of the world. And really what I mean by this, say for example, I live in the American South. Part of the game takes place in a fictionalized version of the American South with Rhodes and Saint Denis being essentially Louisiana and New Orleans. You could say Rhodes could really be any town in rural southeastern United States. It really could be a lot of them, from the red clay that's from Georgia all the way out to Louisiana, and then of course Saint Denis is supposed to be New Orleans, so I mean that's in Louisiana. It definitely has its own cultural fit, and of course you have people like the Lemoyne Raiders. It reminds you a lot of the American Civil War. And so for me personally, whenever I'm in Rhodes or Saint Denis, I'll wear something that is akin to a Civil War outfit. So I'll have one of the Lemoyne Raiders hats on, which is actually funny. The Lemoyne Raiders, the hat that you can get from them that is this sort of infantry cap, is actually, it has like a blue tint to it. Even though they're trying to be Confederates, you can put the blue hat on and wear blue pants and you look like a Union soldier. Now you might notice, wait a minute, where's the jacket you're supposed to be wearing? Well, as someone who lives in this type of an environment, you would not catch me dead with long sleeves and a jacket on. And so I pretty much never do unless I want to look like Ulysses S. Grant or General Sherman. Just for role-playing purposes. I just won't do it because I can feel like Rockstar does a good job in the game. There's like this mist that comes up whenever you're in that part of the world, and it's really not that foggy when you're in a swampy environment like that, but the heat and the humidity, like I feel like that's the visual representation that they have in game of that, and so I can feel the suffocating humidity in the game, and so you will never catch me dead in the game wearing long sleeves with a jacket over it and leather gloves. That's just, I refuse because I just feel bad for Arthur Morgan when he's walking around like that. It's just way too darn hot. And the same thing goes whenever I'm up in, say, Valentine. I'll go for more of that cattle rancher, cattle herder type of look. I'll go with some chaps, maybe a little bit of maybe a heavier, not too heavy of a jacket, or maybe a vest with long sleeves and gloves on. Something that's kind of warm because, you know, it's fairly temperate whenever you look at the temperature up there, but it fits in with that town. And then I feel like when you go over into Roanoke Ridge, that's more of your Appalachia. Maybe you're looking more along the lines of like a frontiersman, where a little bit more of some of the game outfits that you've been able to hunt down through the legendary hunts and whatnot and craft those outfits. So you can go for a little bit more of that look. Again, it's not something you have to do, but I think to fully immerse yourself in the world, to give yourself that full immersive feel, like not only are you fitting in as far as the temperature goes, because you know, maybe it's warm where you are in Saint Denis, or maybe it's really cold where you are up in the Grizzlies, but there's also a certain culture about each and every area, and being able to fit in with that, I think it just adds its own unique twist to all of it, and I think it really adds to the immersion of the game. You just kind of, you flow not only in the effectiveness of what you're wearing, but as well as the visual aspect of what you're wearing. You want to feel like somebody dressed really, really cool for the area. So anyway, after several long years, that is my immersion tips and tricks for Red Dead Redemption 2. I'm happy to have made another video on this game. It honestly has been way too long, and if you want to see more content like this, be sure to subscribe to the channel and let me know down below what else you want to see. Do you want to see secrets or details about Red Dead Redemption 2? Do you want to see if I can find more ways that you can immerse yourself in this game? Let me know down below. I'd love to have a conversation with you guys, and I will see you in the next video.